So it's time for something different, something bold, something that doesn't just pour money down the throat of wasteful, top-down government schemes. The big society is
commutarianism, as I say, an idea set up really for those who set up the whole New World Order for the 20th century into the 21st century, and the whole 21st century, I should say as well. The Royal Institute for International Affairs, CFR, their higher inner group, they always have an inner group. There's always an inner party and an outer party. And the inner party know the whole agenda, the big secrets, you see. Now, there's a very good article here, and it's called Our Common Community, and it's from the UK column. Very good article by Nikki Rapana. And it says, Americans have a lot more in common with the British than many may realize. On both sides of the Atlantic, there's a very quiet and totally identical revolution underway. Commoners from Alaska and London face the same enemy with the same name. What binds them in a way that surpasses all others is the simple fact that neither side knows exactly what their enemy is called. It's not hard to notice cameras on every street corner. Their parents may still need personalized retraining, as the Soviets did, but every school-aged child has been taught their new responsibilities and requirements. Our national government's new and very serious concerns regarding our health and smoking and drinking and overeating and exercise is impossible to ignore. And I'll jump to a very important person who's written about that too in one of his books after this. To continue, it says, it's no joke anymore that we all may have to pay global taxes on the air we breathe. Inside, it says here, inside our private homes, we're all dealing with a whole new bureaucratic system that assumed the role of our new Big Mother. What we share in common is we're all children in Big Mother's global communitarian family. I do know communitarianism is a mouthful to say and a challenge to spell, but it's the most important word you'll mumble aloud this year. Its use is slipping into the mainstream a little more each month, and I think they're gearing up to unveil it before the unwashed masses. Actually, they're going to use this as an excuse to get out of the mess which they brought on, so they could bring it in. Everything happens for a purpose, and that's why they pulled the economy when it was time. Some of you may remember when it was introduced by Tony Blair and New Labour as the third way, like Alvin Toffler. Now Philip Blond is reintroducing communitarianism as a newest theoretical political answer to what ails us. The British Conservative Party under David Cameron is leading the British communitarian resurgence. See, all the parties are in it. They're the same, you see. There's no difference. Former U.S. President Bill Clinton, in a TV interview on April the 18th, 2010, described Americans as more diverse and communitarian now. This was just the latest of Bill's assertions about American communitarianism, a repeat of speeches he's made in Toronto, Montreal, and Berkeley over the past year. Very important, as you understand. That's why these guys don't retire. They're still retained by their masters. For once in his public-private career, Bill Clinton is not lying. Communitarianism is a political system that gives authority over individuals to unelected community stakeholder councils. You're going to hear this term in your papers. I've already seen it in newspapers. You're a stakeholder in your community. In fact, that Who Are We one with the Ontario eco-fees also use that. Your stakeholders. Everyone's a stakeholder in your local area. A stakeholder is defined as a group, person, organization, or system, which can be just about anybody or anything. You'll find the term used in just about every government and grant-funded project in existence today. It's always used as if it means you. Forming partnerships with stakeholders is an effective way to bypass voters and taxpayers living in the affected regions. Their community goals and missions always include raising public awareness. Now, they'll tell you what it's to be raised about and where to go. And advising legitimate government bodies how to adopt the new communitarian laws. Never identified as that, though, unless it's a former communist new member, EU state like Serbia, Croatia, or the Czech Republic, or Bolivia, and Peru, with their new openly communitarian constitutions. And they are. They've been given communitarian constitutions where they're all stakeholders and shareholders in their own community. Claiming to include more citizens in the democratic process, communitarian councils do just the opposite, and they continually seek more power. Bill's right, we're all communitarians now. What that means to us is anybody's guess. Most people will adopt the vague party line and agree it's a fresh solution to partisan politics. The libertarians will tell you they like the part about giving power to unelected, self-appointed community councils who have the communitarian power to regulate everyone's personal life in the community. The Catholics will tell you they just hope a communitarian spirituality is included. The Protestants, Jews and Muslims won't want to seem selfish, so they'll assume a moral value in it somewhere too. See, they've got something for everybody, you see. The left will dismiss it as a right-wing conspiracy theory, and the far right will call it a communist plot. Here's the part that our politicians and the experts never tell us about communitarianism. It's also the law of the European Union, and that's right, folks, it's going to be the law of the NAFTA as well, for America and Canada and Mexico. It's already inching in, it's around you, it's within your communities already. So it's the law of the European Union. Communitarian law is the entire basis for the supremacy of law clause that overrules all national, state, county, and municipal laws in conflict with it. Lots of really smart people will go to great lengths to explain the theory, how some parts of it make real sense to other smart people. Those same smart people will probably tell you they don't know anything about law part. Sorry, it's just a benign social theory, they say, one that rose and fell already. Nothing to worry about. Others will tell you the law is a conspiracy theory. Communitarian law and the communities that we're going into, they're already here. And you don't even know that yourself, that there are agencies and NGOs set up in your communities, getting money from government funding, from the UN as well, and from various other organizations and foundations to guide the new societies. As we're going downhill, you see. As I say, that's why they pooled the economy now. They could have kept it going with their bubbles for another 50 years if they wanted to. Sky's the limit. There's always a fraud. So why burst it now? Is to bring in this and then say, oh my goodness, we have to cut back police forces and so on. There's going to be a lot of crime in the areas, and what will we do about garbage and so on, and taxes and so on. Well, guess what? You'll all go to meetings in your communities and all participate, you see. That's your stake in being a stakeholder, you see. On 3rd of January 2011, following the UK column's lead article exposing insider dealing between the Cabinet Office, that's the upper political bunch, they split them into cabinets, and political behavioural training charity Common Purpose, the Independent newspaper revealed that David Cameron had also set up a Cabinet Office behavioural insight team, and I gave the government website on that too. I've got it in my archives section. Behavioural insight team. Formed in July last year, the secretive cell is tasked to dream up psychological tricks to alter our behaviour and on a massive scale. The Independent article warned how the public is to be reframed, they call it, or nudged, as Sunstein talks about it, into politically acceptable social norms, new normals, starting with healthy eating. Now, healthy eating is your GMO food and vegetarianism, of course. Voluntary work and tax gathering. You have to be trained to help the environment through excessive taxing, and you're going to be trained to feel good about doing it. While this may seem innocent to some people, these early soft targets are already being greatly expanded to include wider central government ideological and political agendas, including Cameron's socialist straitjacket of the big society, as he calls it, as they supposedly decentralise authority down to the local level, and then it's where big business in your area takes over and runs your councils, the new councils. Elite multi-millionaire socialist and Tory Chancellor George Osborne has already signed up behavioural economics, another form of mental reframing of individuals and groups specifically to achieve political economic objectives. Their theory and intent is that once mentally retrained, we will willingly rush to pay excessive taxes. And that's no kidding, folks. That comes out of neuroscience and is part of it behavioural economics. The danger is that we are to be trained to believe what our politicians and public sector, the state, says is right and true. And we will not even be aware that we have been reframed to think so. Never mind the basics, politicians have been proved corrupt, deviant liars. The Soviet Union would have paid in blood and gold for Cameron's political mind control initiative to lock people in a hive mind. Research by the UK column now exposes that Cameron's Liberal and Conservative government coalition is collaborating behind closed doors with similar sinister units in the French government to develop further plans and techniques to change our natural behaviour. The investigation of little-known Rosie Donaghy, who is part of the Behavioural Insight team under Maud Gus O'Donnell and David Halpern, reveals that Donaghy is a key player and go-between in the mental attack on the British public. Aside from her position as senior advisor with the Cabinet Office Behavioural Insights team, we really are in the new Soviet, folks. If you don't know, we really are really deeply inside it. She is also a trustee of the Franco-British Council and is involved with the Party of European Socialists based in Brussels. Not surprisingly for her murky role, she even has two names being referred to as Rosalind in her Franco-British guise. Tracking Mrs. Donaghy's path led UK column investigative reporter to discover that on 17th of November 2010, the Franco-British Council had hosted a meeting inside 10 Downing Street, that's where the Prime Minister is, attended by a mix of the Cabinet Behavioural team and their French counterparts. Alongside Donaghy and others, a key attendee at the secretive meeting was top French mindbender Professor Olivier Houllier, who works directly within French President Sarkozy's private office. The meeting was instigated by Rohan Silva of the No. 10 Policy Unit, following consultation with the Centre for Strategic Analysis of the Prime Minister of France, with the aims of bringing together experts on behaviour economics from France and the UK and to seek cross-fertilisation and generation of concrete proposals through open discussion, and to look at the practical applications for the science of behavioural economics in France and the UK in light of the economic crisis. You're really in the world of Orwell. It's all here. It's all here. Readers should be aware that Rohan Silva is senior policy advisor to David Cameron, and he also sits in advisory for progressive conservatism at Demos. Now, it's amazing, the progressive conservatives, one of their main think tanks is called Demos. Now look into the history of Demos, D-E-M-O-S. It was a top Marxist think tank, still is. For those who don't get it, that capitalism, communism, Capcom is the same thing, run by the same big bankers. There's no doubt an inclination to laugh at the idea that we can be mentally reframed or reprogrammed into new belief systems or patterns of behavior, but clearly these people have not been assembled behind closed doors to play games. A simple click on Google will reveal thousands of NLP training organizations, leadership trainers, and consultancies. They all state that they can and do change people's minds. They earn money from doing so. Meanwhile, whilst NLP and other mental reframing techniques can be used for therapeutic purposes, any technique interfering with the human mind has risks. These may manifest as adverse personality changes, stress, or depression, or even, I'd say that the worst disease of all is political correctness. Stating that behavioural economics can be a powerful tool for improving lives when used with care, the No. 10 meeting was clearly aware of the risks to individuals and the wider public, but according to the notes of the meetings released, seemingly failed to discuss or document those risks. The truth of the meeting at No. 10 is deeply sinister. Modern behavioural manipulation techniques, which includes NLP, can and do achieve changes in people's behaviour, particularly where the victim, individual or group, adult or child, is unaware that they are being targeted. It is perfectly feasible, as that the attendees of the No. 10 are fully aware, to implement political agendas and doctrine by reprogramming people. Consider the Hitler Youth or the Communist Chinese onslaught on the minds of children and young people. These latest insidious techniques do not have that raw brutality, but unchecked, their stealth, effectiveness, and viral spread presents a far greater danger. Behavioural reframing for healthy, voluntary work and taxes today and eugenics tomorrow. We have been warned, and that's one of the better articles I've read for a while, because it's absolutely true. And they do constantly bombard you with politically correct messages about everything. They tell you, and in fact the Frankfurt School were the ones who dreamt up all the idea of political correctness. and how they'd lambaste anybody who would use a certain term, a word, a phrase, whatever. It didn't matter if the person was right about something. They were to all together in unison condemn that person with a nasty term to paint them as dirty and bad and so on. And that's how you're trained so easily along the road into political correctness until you're all like dummies together, denying that the sky can be blue.